Good morning. My name is Jeff Robbins. I'm very happy to be here talking about chatbots for everyone. We're going to do it. This is a mini session, so we're going to do it very, very quickly. But a quick intro to Gideon Taylor and Newbury Enterprise Services. We have absolutely a ton of valuable information for PeopleSoft customers. We've been around the block many, many times, and one of the things that we're talking about, especially these days, is let's do that. One of the things we're talking about these days with our customers is how do we optimize the user experience for for clients that have PeopleSoft. And one of the things that has come out fairly recently, of course, are chatbots. And it's definitely considered out there that chatbots are going to be more and more commonly considered by users to be the way that they interact with systems, either a website that they're familiar with or something as, kind of an integral part of their day-to-day work as PeopleSoft is. And I think that it's actually very interesting because, most of us, when we started seeing chatbots out there, a number of years ago or whatever on a website, we probably ignored it and said, I'm not going to, put in some text and have it say, thank you, let us call our, support personnel or something like that. But nowadays, with much improved conversational UI, user experience, user interaction, these conversational platforms are really getting much more functional and richer. So basically, now that we're looking at using chatbots as a way of helping our employees and our users, interact with PeopleSoft system, we're starting to see that there's a way to use query tools inside a chatbot experience that can actually assist employees to get access to the part of their day job that they would like to quickly access. So how do we guide them through? Because I got to say, a lot of employees don't know exactly where inside PeopleSoft to navigate. So sometimes it's a lot easier to say, rather than look through the menu, okay, could you tell me how to do this or something? And frankly, rather than calling the help desk, the chatbot is a very effective way. And so streamlining access to for your users to submit new forms or look to see the status of something that they're waiting on, getting approved and so on. These kinds of repetitive tasks are what chatbots are really useful for. So let's go ahead and break into it a little bit. With respect to PeopleSoft, the chatbot functionality that is part of PeopleSoft works with a system within the Oracle Cloud called the Oracle Digital Assistant. And this tool is part of the platform services, the PaaS functionality. It's an AI-powered, so it is artificially intelligent software that uses text and hopefully at some point more and more voice interaction, interface for user interactions. And this ODA is essentially the hub that PeopleSoft uses and other non-PeopleSoft systems can use. So if your employees or your users have access to PeopleSoft and others, we can have a common chat bot that could access information from various systems. But we're mostly going to just talk about the PeopleSoft side of the house for right now. So looking at how ODA works or chatbots in general work, you can break down some fairly important, things to understand. The first thing is called skills. Individual bots are essentially called skills. They're focused on specific types of tasks. So inside the PeopleSoft system, things to deal with various parts of HCM, those skills are different than the skills in financials. But I'll get into how Picasso works as well. Skills are these individual bots or programmed capabilities. And it's very easy to add additional skills to these digital assistants or these chatbots. The next term is intents. The intent of the skill is how user requests can be essentially categorized by what type of action can the bot take. What's the bot here for? So delivered chatbots might support 20 or 30 intents out of the box, and it's very easy to add additional. It's not necessarily just a click here and a click there to add new intents, but it is relatively straightforward to extend the number of intents of a delivered bot. And then the last term that I think most people want to hear about is this concept of utterance is with respect to a chatbot. An utterance is how the bot has been trained to understand the user's language and also to respond to the user. So, you know, for example, when I want to, on my PeopleSoft system, log some time off, do I say log PTO, or do I have to use the PeopleSoft term called absence, create an absence, these kinds of things? And so those differences are utterances. So those kinds of things we're very excited to say are all now part of the PeopleSoft user experience. Picasso is chatbots have been around for a little while, even in the PeopleSoft space, but Picasso, which is the PeopleSoft intelligent chat assistant from Oracle, Picasso, is a single chatbot or a single assistant for all of PeopleSoft. So long as you have a cluster of HCM and say financials or even student, you can have chatbots that are a single assistant across all of the PeopleSoft experience. Prior to the availability of Picasso, your employees would get to various dashboards, and whether it's the employee directory or the absence dashboard or benefits or something like that, and have to launch the chatbot that was very specific to those individual functional areas. Now with Picasso, the experience is across the entire PeopleSoft system. So role-based, multiple skills, but it also is very clever in the way that you can have, as a user, interact with PeopleSoft via the chatbot, where you initiate a particular task, and then maybe you interrupt yourself and say, hey, could you look up this thing? Well, the chatbot can actually do those multiple things, and it will keep track of what you were in the middle of before you interrupted yourself. And the other kind of very cool thing is that with chatbots, you can integrate text or SMS integration. PeopleSoft uses a product called Twilio, which is a third-party product, that if you do set up your integration with Twilio, you can have your users send SMS messages back and forth from their phone directly to PeopleSoft without having to use the browser and so on. And so that's a pretty slick system. I think one of the things that we want to talk about is, okay, and I'd love to open this up for questions. I see that there are some questions in chat, so if you are interested in posting questions, let's go ahead and post them to the chat. But one of the things that a lot of people are asking me is, these days, what does it take to get started with a chatbot? And how long does it take? And how big of a deal is it? Do we have to have trained experts in place, or is it something that our sysadmin people familiar with PeopleSoft can do? And the fact is, it doesn't necessarily take a very long time to turn on Picasso and get it set up and at least get started. And one of the best ways to do that is to essentially do a proof of concept where you roll out, say, a limited set of skills to a small group of users, and you check and see whether those chatbots are in place and responding well. And then you can expand and roll out that POC a little bit later. So our experience has been that within about 2 or 3 weeks, we can get ODA set up. get Picasso deployed within the PeopleSoft system, and then start using these chatbots as delivered, maybe a single chatbot skill or maybe a couple as our POC, and do them as delivered so that over time we can improve the utterances and extend the intents and the skills and so on. But within the first few weeks, you can get a chatbot pretty well set up. So that was the introduction, and I'm sure if you're on this call, you've heard a lot about chatbots, and so you've probably heard most of what I've talked before. But I would like to open it up for more discussion, especially if you have specific questions. These are the, I'll leave this up in the back, so if anybody has questions, go ahead and jump in. But the chatbots that have been delivered and additional skills that are in plan, and frankly, this was from a couple months ago, so it might be that even more now with 40, with image 40, there might be more delivered, but I haven't updated this slide. Anybody have any questions or topics? Or I'm also interested, if you don't have questions, if you've already started working with chatbots in your environment, how's it going? Can you share with some of us what you've noticed and how things have been going?
So Jeff, there's a couple of questions in both the Pathable chat as well as the Zoom chat. One of the Zoom.
Thank you for that. I did mean to mention, Scott, the I don't currently have access to Pathable, so you can use in the Zoom chat. But okay, go ahead.
That's great. So let me just read off the couple that came in on Pathable. One is, and I don't know if you'd be able to answer this, do we have a sense of how many clients are using chatbots at this point?
You mean within PeopleSoft, I imagine?
Yeah.
Because yes, more and more, of course, organizations are using this kind of AI technology more and more, and that includes within PeopleSoft. I don't know in terms of specific numbers, but based on my conversations with the PeopleSoft team, as well as our experience talking to some of our clients and so on, I would say that the numbers are picking up pretty rapidly. So over the last approximately year and a half or so, we really have started to see these numbers increase. And I do think it's limited in terms of across the entire system, every single delivered chatbot. I don't think too many customers are, looking at the screen that I have here, have deployed all of these, but certainly more and more are getting there. So I got to say, I don't have the percentage though.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Fair enough. We got a few more. What's the difference between Picasso and the older chatbot project?
Well, the Picasso is the unified chatbot experience. It's essentially a unified UI that brings together all of these delivered chatbots, these older chatbots. So rather than having to navigate to a part of PeopleSoft and launch the benefits chatbot, Picasso lets you ask the same question through a single UI, and it essentially streamlines that experience. So the same little bot can be on the screen no matter where you are in PeopleSoft, and it can respond accordingly. And you can also scroll through. It's not just ask questions. You can scroll through and essentially click the topics.
And is it the case now that once you've got the subscription to ODA, Picasso, there's no charge for Picasso or any of the skills? Is that correct?
So that is correct. Once you own the PeopleSoft modules, the associated chatbot is delivered as part of the PUM process. The ODA is your company needs to have a separate subscription to the Oracle ODA. But once you have that, you can roll out the chatbot. I do see a question about the kind of the cost. If you use Twilio for SMS interactions, then yes, you pay a per text or based on volume on your Twilio subscription, a fee for processing it that way. ODA subscription can be made so that you are not paying for every time somebody queries the ODA, but it is relevant to the specific ODA subscription that you have.
And the one ODA subscription is enterprise-wide? You can use it for HCM, financials, campus solutions?
I think that there are various options about how to expand and extend your ODA subscription, but yes, for the most part, you're not thinking about, you know, once you have ODA, you can bring in content from a variety of systems, including PeopleSoft and other systems as well, ServiceNow and such.
Okay. There's another question. Can we use that solution, Picasso, I'm assuming, on PeopleSoft on-premise?
Yes, and that is a very good question, and I apologize for not having mentioned something that should be mentioned right up front. ODA lives in the cloud, but your PeopleSoft system on-premise or in the cloud will be configured to talk to ODA, but they don't have to both be in the cloud. So your PeopleSoft system on-premise will reach out to the ODA system out on the internet and be able to respond. For Picasso, I see, Dawn, you just asked, image 37 is where, well, did I say, so Picasso is dependent on each delivered, the PUM images, but essentially once you have the released, let's say you're on HCM 31 or higher, or FSCM 33 or higher, once you have those bots, you can take Picasso, which was released more recently, and incorporate it into your image 31, and Picasso will work with those delivered bots. Now, if you're on a much more recent PUM image, that's fine. You'll either have additional new bots or just other HCM features. But Picasso is not specific. It's not a package that was released, say, with HCM specifically. You can pull it separately, independent of your PUM image 31, 33, so on. Hopefully that explains that. I know sometimes these 15-minute sessions are kind of quick, but you're welcome.
I think we've got about maybe 1.5 minutes left because I suspect that they're going to turn it off.
Well, we'll see. Yes.
And now we just got a lot of thanks and very helpful coming through.
Well, so. I'm really glad. And I have to say, just keeping this as an open conversation, I would love to hear if any of you are being driven internally by, hey, we should look at chatbots. Is it something you're starting to get some attraction to internally, or is it just a kind of a shiny topic that some of you are looking at? If your company has something going on that says, yeah, we might want to try chatbots soon, I'd be kind of interested in terms of show of hands, how many people are actually in a company that's actually looking to take on chatbots these days. Yeah, Jim, you're saying just shiny right now. I totally get that. Okay, with large company, yes. And Wendy, your point about bots, ODA and Picasso is not the only way to do this kind of interactive conversational UI, even with PeopleSoft, but it is the one that comes delivered that works out of the box with PeopleSoft, but there are other technologies out there in the marketplace. But if you're PeopleSoft-centric, Picasso and ODA is a great way to go. Picasso and Twilio. The Twilio is a third-party system that has an integration. Twilio does the SMS, so you can set up what phone number what phone number, text number you're going to associate with your PeopleSoft Picasso chatbot. So you assign a phone number, and any employee who can send a text to that, Twilio's integration with PeopleSoft will look up who's the employee, recognize their phone number, understand who it is, and interact via SMS that way. So that's what Twilio is. And it's a completely separate thing, and you have a subscription, and you pay per text, or you pay per volume at the enterprise level or something like that. But the integration is pretty slick. Okay, I'm really glad to see all the points about the shiny thing. Chatbots are definitely one of the shiny new technologies. Kibana analytics and so on is another shiny new technology. But these are the kinds of things that aren't merely shiny. The fact is they actually have a positive impact on the user experience. More and more, whether we're talking about students at a university or your employees, maybe they're millennials, maybe they're even the old people like me. More and more people are happy with when there's intelligence at the chatbot. Why not just, hey, schedule time off next Tuesday until next Friday, done. I don't have to navigate PeopleSoft at all. The more and more intelligence gets incorporated into these chatbots, the more and more I think we're going to see them be a viable option for our users, and that is going to smooth out the user experience. Yes, and there is a supplier portal chatbot as well on the FSCM side, and the interesting thing is that supplier portal, for example, is a good demo of a non-logged in user who's just checking the supplier and may ask the bot, what are the kinds of options that you guys are, that have available. But if they are logged in, then that PeopleSoft security or the user awareness, what data a user has access to, the bot will respect that. And when the supplier is logged in through the portal, they can actually look on the status of an invoice. But if they're a guest, they can ask more guest-like questions. Security considerations for sending sensitive data to and through ODA. Yes, and so the nature of the configuration between your PeopleSoft system and ODA, it does use encrypted security. So it is a very, very secure link between your PeopleSoft data center and the ODA system. And of course, the data that essentially, basically, what you've got is ODA is logging into your PeopleSoft system using REST integration and so on, but it is essentially logging in as a defined user within your system. So once that ODA logs in, they have access, and then we grant them access to the user data based on the logged in user that the ODA bot is interacting with. So the bot will only answer what this user is authorized to see, and all of the entire conversation is encrypted, yes. And as Alan says, the ODA chatbot functionality is not PeopleSoft specific. There is a lot, well, platform services from Oracle Cloud does allow you to access data from a variety of systems, PeopleSoft as well as other things. So those, talking to a customer recently that's using ServiceNow, also is using ODA so that somebody can ask about the status of a ServiceNow issue in the same bot that they're talking to PeopleSoft. So that's kind of slick. And Don, ODA is looking to, fortunately, the people, the platform services folks at Oracle are doing a very good job focusing first on security. And sometimes that slows out the rolling out of additional new features, sexy, shiny new features. But because, frankly, I'm glad to see that the platform services folks are focusing on security first. So I've been impressed, and I know that a lot of people are bringing proper skepticism as they look to see at ODA, and the results have been very positive. So. Yeah.
Jeff, I think that we need to wrap this up and
we probably do.
Tracking.
Yes. So, yes, let me see. Anyway, hopefully you can see if you do have any questions, feel free to contact me. And of course, we can have this conversation at any given point. So thank you so much. I am going to stop sharing, and I think we're going to wrap it up.